With the substitution, like, are there any parameters for substitution?
They have to be of equal or greater rank.
They have to what, please?
Be of the same rank, be of the same qualifications.
Okay, so are there any parameters on reasons for a man can substitute? Are there any limitations?
There's no limitations. If you can't, for whatever reason, can't be at work that day, we provide that coverage.
So suppose you had a hangover.
Excuse me?
Suppose you had a hangover, wasn't feeling well.
I don't think that's the case at all.
Well, I'm just asking, is that possible? If I went out one night and I'm going to a New Year's Eve party and I know I'm going to get hammered, can I call the next guy and say, hey, can you substitute for me? Can that happen? Is that a possibility?
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. All right. Is there a number on how many changes of shifts each member is allowed during the course of a year or course of a month?
No, there's not.
So they could do change of shifts for whatever reason, as many as they want.
We monitor it to make sure it doesn't get. They have to make sure that they get that same time back, whoever they're working that change of shift with. But if they have the person that's qualified of the same rank, they're allowed to change a shift, as long as they have the appropriate signatures.
So could a man, and this is just hypothetical, you have a 4-day rotation, 4 days on, 4 days off. So could a man change his shift for 4 consecutive days in a row when, like, if his shift begins, whatever the date, pick the date, April 1st, and he's April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Could he actually do a change of shift for all 4 days of his rotation?
We've had cases where a firefighter might have not enough seniority to go away on vacation or whatever. If they get married to go on a honeymoon, they are allowed to take that whole shift off with change of shifts, because again, it doesn't incur any costs.
So you just something very interesting. So you have a guy with enough of vacation time, but instead of consuming his vacation time, he goes on a change of shift.
He either doesn't have the vacation time, he might not have that time available. He might not have that vacation. He couldn't get that week because of seniority. We pick vacation weeks by seniority on the job, and particularly with the junior firefighters, they don't have the seniority to get peak months.
Okay, so this is the point I'm making to Councilman Corley's question, Councilman. The fire department is leading you to believe that there's no financial impact of change of shift, but there is a huge financial impact, because what the change of shift does is it preserves a man's sick day or their vacation day. So if I've used all my vacation days and I want to go up to Lake Winnipesaukee, what I do is I do a change of shift with somebody else who owes me that favor. So, and if I have sick days in the bank and I have vacation days in the bank, instead of utilizing them to go to the christening or to go to Lake George or to go out and get hammered that night, I do a change of shift, and that preserves my vacation day and my sick day to be monetized at a later date.
We would never want a firefighter to use a sick day if he was not in fact sick.
So in other words, what he can do is he can take another day off that's not built into the budget, right, that we have no control over, for the point of recreation or anything else. Let me ask you this question. Is there any situation where a man can do a change of shift and go work at another job?
No.
Huh. Chief, I got news for you. You've been had. These documents are from the state of Rhode Island and the University of Rhode Island. That shows for 2 straight months, a Warwick firefighter, full-time, on a state project. That Warwick firefighter received the maximum amount of unused sick pay and the maximum amount of vacation time. Not only do I have the contract specifications, the emails between that firefighter and the purchasing department, his handwritten invoices, and the pay stubs right here. So my point is, and I'm not going to name names unless you'd like me to, but my point is this, Council. The substitution clause in the contract needs to go. It's a way to organize, it's an organized method of scheming the system to preserve sick time and vacation time to be monetized at a later date. Furthermore, I spent hours going through these documents the first 90 days. And going through those documents, I found some very disturbing trends where what I see is this. In a 4-day rotation, and again, I'm not going to name names, but I'll make them available to you, Chief, because you may not even know this. I know you have a lot going on. But what typically happens is, a man is on, and this happens just before the man's going to go on vacation. He works his first 3 days on his regular shift. The fourth day on the shift, he either calls in sick or does a change of shift. Then he's off for 4 days. Then he goes on vacation for 4 days. Then he's off for 4 days. And the first day back, he calls in sick. Yet dozens of men that I see the exact same scenario, I look at the unused sick time from 2015 and 2016, and these men all got the maximum amount of unused sick time. So I started to say to myself, I've been off for 17 days or 18 days, and now it's my first day back on from my vacation, and I call in sick, how are we writing off that sick day to Title 45, and that man's sick day allowance is not being reduced? So these documents show exactly that. And I can tell you how I quantified it. I have the documents. It's taken me almost a year, as some of you know, to get all these documents. So in the 2015 with the unused sick time, when you averaged it out, you added up all the unused sick days, and if you recall, Council, at the beginning of this new contract last year, we were half and half through the old contract and the new contract. 10 days paid unused sick time on the back half and 15 days on the front half, which with the decimal equivalent of 1 2/3 a day would give us a maximum amount of sick time that a man could get at 12.48 days. So when you took the entire unused sick time and you averaged it out, the max they could get was 12.48. It came out to 12.28, which means that virtually no sick time was being reduced from the firefighters' allocated sick time. And in fact, as of the end of 2015, when this report was produced in February of 2016 by city charter, there were 22,875 sick days on the books. So we did the same thing this year with the 2016 sick day report, which shows now you have a maximum of 15 days that any firefighter can get. And when I averaged that all out, it came out to the average firefighter received 14.43 sick days, which again shows that less than one sick day is being reduced from their allocated sick time. When I looked in the 90 days, the first 90 days, we had 680 sick days in the first 90 days. And even if we just use the number 1,415 sick days, which had nothing to do with illness on the job or injury on the job, that suggests that it's virtually mathematically impossible for these men to get the maximum sick day bonus. So I looked even deeper into it, and I just picked random men, and I went to the accountability sheet, and I found men that call in sick after vacation multiple times, and they all received the maximum sick day bonus of 15 days. And I'd like someone to be able to explain that to me. Oh, and one other question just before, because this might tie into that. The contract says that the maximum amount of time that a man can accrue for sick time is 140 days. Well, presently we have 88 men that have in excess of 140 days. So maybe you could take a moment, please, and clarify how this scenario could take place mathematically if we have documented sick days, but the unused sick days, everybody's getting paid the max.
To answer your question on the 5, after you accumulate 140 at the 15th of the month, they get 1.66, 1 2/3. We get 20 days a year, 20 sick days a year, so you get 1 2/3. If you accumulate above the 140, anything beyond that, you get paid for 1.25% of that. 1.25% of the 1.66 leaves left off 0.4. So that's where, if nobody called out sick throughout that period of time into that last year, that's where the 5 days could happen. At the end of that year, it rolls back to 140. It can't go beyond that. So that's the answer to 5 days. As far as the numbers that you're talking about, I do dispute the amount of sick time. Number one, I clearly have exactly what the number of sick time is to me, and I'll go over that. And as far as abuse, you've got somebody that's working while doing a change of shift. I can assure you, if that was brought to my attention while I was active, or if it's ever happened in the future, I do not know anything about that.
Oh, Chief.
Well, no. Are you saying that I do?
No, I'm saying that I think it's a pretty well-known fact that the majority of the guys have other part-time jobs.
I disagree.
Well, I would say that...
That was the case many years ago, but it is less and less part-time jobs.
Okay.
Firefighters.
All right, but I would just remind you that I have documentation from the state of Rhode Island purchasing with the firefighters.
That's one instance right there, and I'd like to get, if the firefighter is still on the job, I'd like to follow through with that.
I don't want to talk personal, but I'll give you a copy of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so...
Yes, if you would, Mr. Cody, just give the chief a copy of that.
Yes.
Let him investigate for whether it be disciplinary or other action relative to that, if in fact it's accurate.
Okay.
But let's get on with the budget and...
So, as far as...
Mr. President, can I interrupt for 1 second? Mr. Cody, also, if you would give a copy of that to David, so that way there's no question later on whether there was an investigation, that way we can have two parallel tracks on that.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, Mayor, what I'll do is I'll make a certain request for accountability sheets within a vague period of time so that I can also do the check at the same time that you guys do it.
Well, I would think if your information was accurate, the chief on his own initiative would probably look further into it within the department.
So, relative to line item 35-100, sick time and other leave, so it shows this year $25,260. So I understand, and we had this line of questioning last year that only itemizes the non-uniform fire personnel.
And as well as the dispatchers.
Dispatchers, correct.
Correct.
So now, in April, the council passed PCO 1717, which indicated that all departments must itemize uniform sick time, and the police department currently does and has done for generations. So I guess my point is, why has the fire department been exempt from itemizing that? And this question would be to you, Mayor. You vetoed that ordinance, and it was unanimously overruled.
Right.
And the point is that every other department does it. And I think that the city council wanted to have that done for clarity, so they have more tools so they can better disseminate the budget in reality. Because what happens is, when you answered that for me last year, you said they just roll that into salaries.
Well, you have to look at the sick time and the salary account together.
Right.
And as long as that's not going over what the projected salary account was, then you know that you're well within budget. So the council did pass that ordinance. In my veto message, you will read that there was no way for personnel to break that out between the time that they passed it and the time that we had to submit a budget for this year. But we made it very clear that we could do so for next year's budget.
Why hasn't that been done in the past?
I have no idea. It's also not done in most of the municipal budgets, so that you will see when you go through virtually the 101, the 100th line in virtually every municipal department is zero as well.
No, I'm looking at, you've looked at the police itemized their uniform sick time.
Let's go to like Board of Public Safety, it is down to zero. So most departments, you go to Parks and Recreation, it's down to zero.
Well, we're looking at, bear in mind, Mayor, we're looking at vast different size of the department.
I agree, but it's not been broken out in everything except the fire department.
Okay, so I just think that, that really needs to be clarified. And I'll give you an example. So the chief was kind enough on one of my requests that he sent me the salary rates of all the members. It was broken down to the day rate. So what I just did, I just added them all up and I divided them by the number of men and I came out with an average day rate, right? Follow me so far? And then I took that average day rate and I multiplied it by the number of sick days. And it came out with a value of $697,000 in sick time. And that was just up until March 22nd. And if you did some simple, and by the way, I didn't include the two-step raises of 3%, so my numbers are actually low. So then if you extrapolate that out to how many more sick days there would be based on the past, you're looking at $929,000 in sick time. So that's a huge number. It's 8.7 times higher than the police department, and it's 7.8 times higher than the Department of Public Works. So there's a huge disparity between the sick time in the fire department and every other department. So I think the council, in their wisdom, wanted to have this so they can use that in the budgets to disseminate what's taking place and be able to track the sick time. Because frankly, right now, the way that the sick time is accounted for, between the unused sick time, the change of shift, and sick time being written off to Title 45, the accounting becomes deceptive. So when the council looks at this, and they spend an awful lot of their own personal time, they don't have the tools to be able to disseminate that correctly. So when will the council get, will they be getting, has anyone from the council asked you for, after the fact, after the budget hearings, to break this down in a reasonable amount of time for fiscal year 2017?
I would have to ask Ernie when he thinks he can do that.
No, basically what we would do is incorporate any changes into the next budget, FY18, and 19. I mean, the budget's adopted. It's already put in place.
So they would have to start doing that July 1 to be able to build that for the next year.
So that is what will happen for next year?
That is what we've been planning on.
Okay, great, thank you. Ernie, a question for you. So, per the city charter, every February, the fire department produces an accrued sick time, an accrued sick days that are in the bank. Do you follow that, and like, do you put a value on that, on the unused sick time that they have in the bank? Do you have any idea how much that value is, or how many days? Because it's kind of a future liability that's not accounted for in the budget.
I would have to check. It may be listed in the audit, but I'm not sure.
Okay, because I went through and I couldn't find it, and the documents that I got from the chief, when I added them up, as of February 17th, we had 22,510 days in the budget, which is approximately like $12.4 million of sick time that's in the bank that I think is a future liability that's not listed anywhere. And I just had another question, quick question on, okay, so unused, and this is for Ernie. So the unused sick time, Ernie. So in between the contracts, at the end of 2015, 2016 is when the council or the mayor put in to increase the unused sick time by 50%, from 50 to 75%. So I have your fiscal note here, and on your fiscal note, on your line item of unused sick pay, you show that there's going to be a $182,800 increase in that line item. But in actuality, that increase was $649,421. We went from $443,000 to $1,092,421. How could you make an error such as almost $750,000?
I believe the fiscal note was for the normal increase in sick time. It did not include any types of payouts for unused sick time for retirements. That was not contemplated in the fiscal note, as I recall.
Well, no, this is the unused sick time, budgeted unused sick time.
Right, but when you look at that number, unused sick time, that's where the retirement sick time gets paid out from.
Well, actually, I have the retirement sick time too, and the retirement payout of unused sick days is not included in the unused sick time sheet that I've gotten from the city. And in fact, at the end of 2016, we had 7 firefighters retire, and their total unused sick time was $297,854. That doesn't include their unused vacation time. That amount of money and that amount of days is not tabulated in the unused sick pay that is distributed once a year in February that I have right here. These documents right here. So when we paid out $1,092,000 this year, the retirees were not included in that. And when I looked at that, the other question I had, and I think the mayor and Mr. Picozzi answered it, just correct me if I'm wrong. So I think there was a question as to what line item do we pay out unused sick time and unused vacation time. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that David clarified saying that they're actually kept on the books until that time, until that amount of money is paid off. So if they're going to retire September 1st and they have 20 days that they're paid for next to 20, Dave? On the municipal.
On the municipal side.
So how does it work on fire? If you have 7 guys that retire and you have a liability of $298,000, what line item do we pay that out in?
Unused sick time comes out of 35-116.
On 35-116?
Correct.
So in other words, when this individual retired, he got $48,326 in unused sick time. So they cut him a check, one check for $40,326.
But whatever's owed to him in unused sick time is paid out of that account.
So it's one check.
Correct.
Okay, so they're not basically kept on the books until...
No.
Okay.
That's only on the municipal side.
Okay. So, I think I only have one more question. Okay, so I have to tell you, Mayor, I spent an enormous amount of time and money getting these documents to perform some simple mathematics. It wasn't easy. You guys don't make it easy. Everything's a delay. Everything's deceptive. It's a cost factor. I don't have this document. I do have this document. And then when you get the documents and you perform simple math and you put it on a spreadsheet, it shows one thing and one thing only. It shows deception. And when I see these costs going up year after year, $929,000 in sick time, yet everyone gets the maximum amount of sick time bonus, that only points to one thing, where the system is being gamed. And when we look at this city, when Mr. Picozzi's got to take a $500,000 hit on paving roads, sand and salt, we're closing a senior center because we can't fix the roof, every service line item in the budget is cut, but every single year, every single firefighter makes more money. And I also have the documents for the 3 years, the historical 3 years during the pay freeze period, where every single firefighter made more money. Some guys made up to $60,000 more. And in fact, I have the W-2 forms. When I made a request, I have these W-2 forms, random request for 3 firefighters during the pay freeze period. And these 3 firefighters during the pay freeze period made an increase of $238,180 between 3 guys during the pay freeze period. So I have their W-2s, I have their base salary, and I have their annual accrued salary for those 3 years. It went up and up and up for 3 years. So this department keeps getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And every other line item and service line in the city goes down and down and down. We've got the best of equipment. And frankly, you know, I know you took a rescue out of Station 4, which Station 4 has the longest run in the city up to Warwick Neck. We should have an advanced rescue there. For the unused sick time, we could have 4 more advanced rescues, and you could have a rescue in every house. So here's what I'd like to beg the council. At the next ratification of the contracts, the sick time's got to go away because they don't need it. Under Title 45, the fire department has unlimited sick time for illness or injury that is job related. Well, how do we find that? Well, when I just brought that woman out of the house, she was coughing. 2 days later, I got a cough. I'm going out on illness, job related. That's what's happening, and that's what these documents clearly show. There's no reason for the city to have to give 220 firefighters another 20 days. That's 4,400 days of sick time, which we're showing none of it gets, very little of it gets used. It goes in the bank. It's a liability. So I beg the council to look at that. That needs to be cut down to maybe 5. And the substitution clause has to go away, because the substitution clause is a manipulative tool for the department that's costing the taxpayers money. Thank you.
Any questions from the general public?